Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Islamic Audiobooks collection. I will be reading When the Moon Split by Safiur R Mubarakpuri, which we downloaded from kalamullah.com. Let's read.
Page 27. Choosing a profession. Having lost his parents and his grandfather, Muhammad, peace be upon him, who was in the care of his uncle Abu Talib, came of age with practically no inheritance. At first, he tried to make a living tending goats for the Banu Sa'd. But then, upon his return to Makkah, he tended goats for the Quraysh for a small sum. The choice of occupation was significant. Later, after becoming a prophet, Muhammad, peace be upon him, remarked, "There has been no prophet who has not tended sheep." Noted for his trustworthiness, honesty and piety, he came to be called Al-Amin, the trustworthy. Muhammad, peace be upon him's reputation, led Khadija bin Khuwailid to entrust him with her merchandise to sell in Syria. As a wealthy businesswoman from a noble family of the Quraysh, she would hire men to conduct business on her behalf, and so it happened that the young Muhammad, peace be upon him, journeyed to Syria with her slave Seerah. The trip was extremely successful and profitable, and upon his return to Makkah, Muhammad, peace be upon him, gave Khadija her prophet. Khadija, may Allah be pleased with her, was twice widowed, having been married to Atiq bin Ayyad and then to Abu Khala. While married to Abu Khala, she bore a son. Following her second husband's death, she received several proposals from various chiefs of the Quraysh, all of which she refused. Now, however, impressed with Seerah's description of Muhammad, peace be upon him's character, she broached the topic of marriage to Muhammad, peace be upon him, through her friend Nafisa. Being open to the idea, he consulted his uncles, who sent his proposal to Amr bin Asad, Khadija, may Allah be pleased with her, uncle. Amr accepted on his niece's behalf, and Muhammad, peace be upon him, gave 20 camels as dowry. Some sources mention that he gave her 6 camels. They were married in the presence of the Banu Hashim and the chiefs of the Quraysh. Praising and glorifying Allah, Abu Talib recited the wedding sermon and formalized the union. Thus, within 2 months and some days within Muhammad, peace be upon him's return from Syria, he and Khadija, may Allah be pleased with her, were married. He was 25 years old, while she, may Allah be pleased with her, was either 28 or 40. Khadija, may Allah be pleased with her, was Muhammad, peace be upon him's first wife. He married none other during her lifetime. She bore all his children except for Ibrahim, who was born to Maria Qibtiyya, Mary the Copt. They were named in order of birth: Qasim, Zainab, Ruqayya, Kulthum, Fatima, Abdullah and Ibrahim. Scholars, however, disagree about the exact number and order of deaths. All the sons passed away during childhood, but all the daughters lived to see their father become a prophet. Each daughter embraced Islam and migrated to Medina, and all but Fatima, may Allah be pleased with her, died during the lifetime of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Fatima, may Allah be pleased with her, died 6 months after her father's death. When Muhammad, peace be upon him, was 35 years old, a devastating flood damaged the Kaaba. The walls of the Kaaba had been weakened by a fire earlier, and the flood caused additional cracks to form. The structure, revered by the Quraysh, was in danger of collapse. Seeing their house of worship under threat of ruin, the Quraysh decided to rebuild the Kaaba. They resolved not to taint the project with resources gained through usury, prostitution or larceny. As the walls of the Kaaba had to be torn down before they could be rebuilt, the Quraysh feared Allah would punish anyone who raised his hand against the sacred house. Walid bin Mughira was the first to approach the Kaaba, declaring, "Allah will not destroy reformers." He began to dismantle the walls of the Kaaba. When others saw that he had done so, untouched by divine wrath, they joined in the work. They demolished the Kaaba down to the original foundation laid by Ibrahim, peace be upon him. Then the construction started, with each tribe being allotted specific duties. The nobles among them carried pieces of stone and piled them up in one place. Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his uncle Abbas were among those carrying stones. A Roman mason named Baqum reconstructed the walls. However, the tribes were unable to collect enough money to rebuild the Kaaba completely, so a small wall was built, showing the boundaries of the original foundation laid by Ibrahim, peace be upon him. This small wall enclosed an area of about 6 cubits on the northern side of the Kaaba and is called Hijr Ismail. When the wall was completed up to the spot where the black stone, Al-Hajr al-Aswad, was located, a dispute arose. Each chieftain claimed the honour of putting the black stone in place. The crisis continued for 4 or 5 days and bloodshed was imminent. At that time, Abu Umayyah, the oldest among them, found a solution to the problem. He suggested that the next man who entered the gate of the Kaaba should be given the authority to settle the dispute. Everyone agreed to this suggestion, and it was the will of Allah that the next man to enter the gate was Muhammad, peace be upon him. "It's Muhammad, peace be upon him," they said as soon as they saw him coming. "Since he is trustworthy, we all agree to abide by his decision." When Muhammad, peace be upon him, learned the details of the dispute, he asked them to bring a sheet. He, peace be upon him, then took the black stone and placing it on the sheet, asked each clan to take hold of an edge of the sheet and lift it in unison. When the black stone was lifted up by the tribal chieftains, Muhammad, peace be upon him, pushed it into place with his own hands. Everyone was satisfied with Muhammad, peace be upon him's decision, and a great conflict was averted. The black stone rests about 1.5 meters above the ground, with the Kaaba door about 1/2 meter above the black stone. The Quraysh did not lower the position of the door because they did not want anyone to enter the Kaaba without their permission. They also doubled the height of the walls from 9 to 18 cubits, added a roof 15 cubits in height, and 6 pillars in 2 rows inside the Kaaba to support it. From childhood, Muhammad, peace be upon him, was exceptionally intelligent and chaste and was highly regarded for his honesty, valour, justice, piety, patience, modesty, loyalty and hospitality. Abu Talib described his beloved nephew in the following words: "He is fair and handsome. From his visage, mercy falls like rain. He is a shelter for the orphan and a protector of widows." Muhammad, peace be upon him, maintained good relations with his family, bore others' burdens, and guided the destitute towards self-sufficiency. In keeping with his future role as Allah's messenger, one who was to outlaw all aspects of idolatry and polytheism, Muhammad, peace be upon him, had an inherent hatred for the prevailing paganism of his time. Thus, although he was an integral part of his society, Muhammad, peace be upon him, never attended any of the important local festivals and fairs that revolved around idol worship and drinking. He was also careful not to eat the flesh of any animal slaughtered in the name of someone other than Allah, and avoided touching or even coming close to idols. He especially detested hearing oaths sworn upon the pagans' 2 famous idols, Lat and Uzza. With his aversion to some of the most cohesive social ties in Meccan society, it was inevitable that Muhammad, peace be upon him, would grow apart from his fellow Meccans and their depraved way of life that included public drunkenness and female infanticide. He began to long for solitude, prefer to spend his time alone, away from the noisy festivals and crowded markets. At the same time, he felt the need to save his people from the destruction he felt was imminent. His discontent grew, and he began to seek refuge in the cave of Hira. Here he would spend long periods alone, and it was here that he worshipped not idols or imagined gods, but the one true God, Allah. Following the monotheistic practice of his forefather Ibrahim, peace be upon him, every year for 3 consecutive years he spent the month of Ramadan in the cave. He would then return to Makkah, circumambulate the Kaaba, and then go home. When Muhammad, peace be upon him, reached 40 years of age, he began to experience what could be called portents of prophethood. He would have visions, and whatever appeared to him in these visions and dreams would come true. Late one Monday night, just before sunrise, on the 21st of Ramadan, August the 10th, 610 CE, an event transformed the life of the man chosen to deliver Allah's message, just as it would change the lives of countless beings, most of whom were yet to be born. According to the lunar calendar, Muhammad, peace be upon him, was 40 years, 6 months and 12 days old, and according to the solar calendar, he was 39 years, 3 months and 22 days old. He was alone in the cave of Hira. engaged in worshipping Allah, just like he had done the previous 2 Ramadans. Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, who has narrated so many of the Prophet's words and deeds, relates Muhammad, peace be upon him's transition from an ordinary man to someone who would forever be known simply as the Prophet. The Prophet, peace be upon him, first began to have revelations in the form of good dreams which came true. Then he began to like solitude. He would go to the cave of Hira and meditate there in solitude for a number of days and nights. He would take provisions with him to stay for an extended period, and when he returned to Khadija, may Allah be pleased with her, he would stock up again and go back to the cave. This was his practice until truth was revealed to him by an angel while he was in the cave of Hira. The angel said to him, "Read." "I cannot read," Muhammad, peace be upon him, replied. The angel then took hold of him and pressed him until he could not endure it any longer. The angel let go and said, "Read." "I cannot read," Muhammad, peace be upon him, replied. The angel took hold of him a second time and pressed him until he could not endure it any longer. After letting him go, the angel said, "Read." "I cannot read," Muhammad, peace be upon him, repeated. For a third time, the angel took hold of him and pressed him until he could not endure it any longer. The angel released him and said, "Read, in the name of your Lord, the Creator, he who created man from a clot. Read, and your Lord is the most bounteous." The Prophet, peace be upon him, was terrified, and his heart was pounding hard. He returned home to Khadija, may Allah be pleased with her, and said, "Cover me, cover me." Khadija, may Allah be pleased with her, covered him and helped him calm down. He related what had happened in the cave and said, "I fear that something has happened to me." "Never," Khadija, may Allah be pleased with her, replied. "I swear by Allah, Allah would never disgrace you. You keep good relations with your family, help the feeble and destitute, serve your guests generously, and assist those who deserve help." Khadija, may Allah be pleased with her, then took the Prophet, peace be upon him, to her cousin, the old and venerable Waraqah bin Nawfal. He knew Hebrew and was familiar with the Gospels, having left paganism for Christianity. "O my cousin," Khadija, may Allah be pleased with her, began, "listen to your nephew." "What have you seen, my nephew?" asked the blind old man. The Prophet, peace be upon him, told Waraqah what had happened in the cave. "The angel that was sent to you is the same angel that Allah sent to Musa, peace be upon him. I wish I were young and could live to see the day your own people drive you out of this city." "Will they drive me out?" the Prophet, peace be upon him, asked. "Yes," replied Nawfal. "Never has a man bought something such as what you have without meeting hostility. If I live to see the day you are expelled, I will support you with all my might." A few days later, however, Waraqah died, and a long time passed before the Prophet, peace be upon him, received a second revelation. The Qur'an tells us that the first revelation descended in Ramadan on the night of power. The month of Ramadan is the month in which the Qur'an was revealed. Qur'an 2:185. And we have indeed revealed this message during the night of power. Qur'an 97:1. After Jibreel, peace be upon him, first appeared before Muhammad, peace be upon him, at the cave of Hira, a long time passed without any further revelation. A distressed Muhammad, peace be upon him, feared Allah had abandoned him. Why had his Lord deserted him? In moments of despair, he would want to throw himself off a mountain, and then he would sense Jibreel, peace be upon him's presence, and then become calm again. This interim period was a time of contemplation, a time for Muhammad, peace be upon him, to prepare himself for what lay ahead. One day, Muhammad, peace be upon him, returned to the cave of Hira to worship in solitude. As he left the cave and began to descend the mountain, another strange event took place. The Prophet, peace be upon him, described the event as follows. "When I descended the mountain and came to the valley, I heard a voice saying, 'Muhammad, you are the Prophet of Allah, and I am Jibreel.' Then I raised my head on the horizon. I saw the angel who had come to me in the cave of Hira. I was filled with awe and bowed towards the earth. I hurried home to Khadija and asked her to wrap me up. She put a blanket round me and sprinkled water on me." It was at this time that the Prophet, peace be upon him, received the second revelation. It comprised the first 5 verses of Surah Al-Mudaththir. "O you, wrapped in garments, arise and warn. Magnify your Lord and your clothing purify. Shun idols and false worship, and give not a thing in order to have more, or consider not your deeds of obedience to Allah as a favour to Him, and be patient for the sake of your Lord, i.e., perform your duty to Allah. Qur'an 74:1-7. This revelation, with its instructions regarding worship, came before Muhammad, peace be upon him, was instructed to perform regular prayers, salah. It marked the resumption of visitations by Jibreel, peace be upon him, and subsequent revelations came in quick succession. Muhammad, peace be upon him, had been appointed as a prophet with the first revelation. With the second revelation, he was made Allah's messenger, entrusted with 2 tasks. The first task was to arise and warn. He was ordered to teach his people about Allah and to warn them about the consequences of their sins. The Prophet, peace be upon him's second task was to obey the commands of Allah and act as a model for others. The surah contains a series of instructions to the Prophet, and a line-by-line examination reveals the basic religious practices ordered in Islam. In the original Arabic, the phrase فَقَبِير in the first verse means worship Allah alone without associating any partners with Him. In the second verse, the expression ثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ literally means purify your clothing, but according to Muslim scholars, it also means purify your conduct. The next verse, وَرُجْزَ فَهْجُرْ, enjoins the Prophet, peace be upon him, to abstain from the pagan customs of the Arabs. The verse لَا تَمْنُنْ تَسْتَخِيرْ means do not expect to be rewarded in this world for your effort. Finally, وَلِرَبِّكَ فَاصْبِرْ means be patient for your Lord's sake. Muhammad, peace be upon him, accepted his duties as a prophet and messenger with resolute obedience. He answered his Lord's call by inviting members of his household to worship Allah in keeping with his commandments. They were to be Muslims, those who had surrendered to Allah, and their religion was Islam, the religion of peace. However, the Prophet, peace be upon him's compatriots were a rough people, accustomed to settling their disputes with swords. They clung to idol worship because it had been the practice of their ancestors, who had strayed far from the pure monotheism of Ibrahim and Ismail, peace be upon them. Sensing their antagonism, the Prophet, peace be upon him, began to quietly teach those closest to him, those whose hearts he felt would be open to the truth. Khadija, may Allah be pleased with her, was the first person to believe her husband had been chosen as Allah's messenger and prophet. As his wife, she knew, more than anyone else did, that Muhammad, peace be upon him, was no ordinary man. His sublime character and innate morality set him apart from those he lived among. She had heard talk about Allah's final prophet, who was yet to appear. She had also heard about some of the strange and miraculous events that others had witnessed concerning Muhammad, peace be upon him. Furthermore, she had heard Waraqah say that the angel who had come to the cave of Hira was none other than Jibreel, peace be upon him, and that this angel had brought Muhammad, peace be upon him, a revelation from Allah. Lastly, she was present at the moment Surah Al-Mudaththir was revealed. It was therefore only natural that she was the first to believe in Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his appointment as Allah's final messenger. Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him, was also among the first people to become Muslim. When the verses of Al-Mudaththir were revealed, the Prophet, peace be upon him, went to Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him, who was a leading Meccan trader and a prominent figure in his own right, and told him what had happened. 2 years younger than the Prophet, peace be upon him, he was thoroughly familiar with his friend's character and the reputation he enjoyed in the community for truthfulness. Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him, did not doubt Muhammad, peace be upon him's declaration of his prophethood, just as he did not refuse his invitation to Islam. With his declaration of faith, he became one of the first Muslims. Ali bin Abu Talib, may Allah be pleased with him, was only a child when the Prophet, peace be upon him's mission began, and some sources indicate he was 10 years old when he became Muslim. He was living under the Prophet, peace be upon him's guardianship, since his father, Abu Talib, was unable to provide for all his children. Muhammad, peace be upon him, was like a second father to the boy, who believed without a doubt that his guardian was indeed a prophet and that he had brought the truth. Among the first to accept the faith was also the Prophet, peace be upon him's freedman, Zayd bin Khalid bin Sharabil Qalbi, may Allah be pleased with him. Sold into slavery in the pre-Islamic era, Zayd had refused to leave the Prophet, peace be upon him, when his relatives tried to buy his freedom. For a while, he was known as Zayd bin Muhammad, but following the prohibition of giving adopted children the names of their foster parents, he was referred to by his actual name as mentioned above. Notwithstanding the change of name, Zayd's love for the Prophet was deep, and the bond between the two was enduring. These four, Khadija, Abu Bakr, Ali, and Zayd, may Allah be pleased with them, accepted Islam the same day the opening verses of Surah Al-Mudaththir were revealed. Some sources hold that they accepted Islam in the same order as given above. Life changed for the new Muslims who desired to reform the religious practices of their families and friends. After his conversion, Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him, began to encourage others to abandon idol worship and follow Allah's Messenger, peace be upon him. A well-respected merchant, known for his generosity and intelligence, Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him, was the foremost authority on Arab genealogy. His reputation and his character ensured that people gravitated to him, and if he deemed a person was sincere in finding the truth, he would talk to him about his new faith. Many people were interested in what he told them about Islam, and they went with him to the Prophet, peace be upon him. Among those who became Muslim in this way, Uthman bin Affan Umwi, Zubair bin Awam Asadi, Abdul Rahman bin Auf Zuhri, Saad bin Abi Waqas Zuhri, and Talha bin Ubaidillah Taymi. Many others from the Quraysh later became Muslims. Abu Ubaidah Amir bin Jarrah, Abu Salama bin Abdul Asad and his wife Salama, Arqam bin Abil Arqam, Uthman bin Madhun and his brother Qadam bin Madhun, and Abdullah bin Madhun, Ubaidah bin Khalid bin Mutlib bin Abdul Munaf, Saeed bin Zayd bin Amr bin Nafil and his wife, the sister of Umar, Fatima bint Khattab, Khabab bin Arat, Jafar bin Abi Talib and his wife Asma bint Umais, Khalid bin Said bin As and his wife Amina bint Khalaf, his brother Amr bin Said bin As, Hatib bin Harith and his wife Fatima bint Mujalil, and his brother Khattab bin Harith, his wife Fakhiya bint Yasir, and his other brother Muammar bin Harith, Mutalib bin Azar and his wife Ramala bint Abi Auf, and Naim bin Abdullah bin Naham. More believers came from other tribes to embrace Islam. Abdullah bin Masud Hadli, Masud bin Rabi'a Qari, Abdullah bin Jash and his brother Abu Ahad bin Jash, Su'aib bin Sinan Rumi, Ammar bin Yasir Ansi and his parents Yasir and Sumaya, and Amr bin Fuhaira. Ayman Baraka, the Prophet peace be upon him's father's Abyssinian slave, who had looked after the Prophet peace be upon him during his childhood, also became Muslim, as did al-Fadl Lababatul, Qubra bint Harith, Hilayla, and Asma bint Abu Bakr Siddiq. Those and others who embraced Islam in the early days of Islam are called the earliest believers. Scholars put their number at 130, but the exact time of their declaration of faith cannot be determined. Such a list includes those companions also who embraced Islam after the Prophet, peace be upon him, began preaching his message openly. Despite the long gap between the first and second revelations, subsequent revelations came in quick succession after Surah Al-Mudaththir. The next surah to be revealed was Surah Al-Fatiha. Surah Al-Mudaththir was not a set of instructions for the Prophet, peace be upon him, alone. Its message was explicit for the believers as well. In its verses, they were given a set of rules to live by, rules that still bind Muslims to the laws of Allah. The surah teaches the believers how to praise and invoke Allah. Some of those principal attributes are also mentioned in the verses. We learn through it that each person will reap what good or bad he sows in this world, and that he will receive recompense for it in the next world. It guides one to the way of true success. Other duties and acts of worship were instituted with subsequent revelations. Once the bedrock of faith in Allah and His Messenger, peace be upon him, had been firmly established, the believers were instructed to build on their faith with acts of worship. The first duty ordained at the beginning of the Prophet, peace be upon him's mission, was salah, prayer. Jibreel, peace be upon him, taught the Prophet, peace be upon him, how to perform prayers and wudu, ablution, and asked him to offer 2 rak'ah, units of prayer, morning and evening. Since wudu was a prerequisite of prayer, perfect purity became the sign of a believer. Salah was based on Surah Al-Fatiha, the opening surah of the Qur'an, and praise and glorification of Allah punctuated each movement made during prayer. Salah was now established as the mainstay of the believer's faith, an act of worship to be offered twice a day. Trying to keep their worship pristine, far from the idolatrous practices of Makkah, the believers would perform salah in secluded places like vales and passes. At this stage, the Prophet's revelations focused mainly on the articles of faith and the different aspects of Tawheed, oneness of Allah. These early revelations exhorted the Prophet, peace be upon him's companions, to purify their souls, aroused in them a sense of morality, and vividly described paradise and hell, with their themes of the transience of life, the permanence of the hereafter, eternal joy, and everlasting punishment. The verses of the Qur'an offered much in the way of inspiration and admonition. The Prophet, peace be upon him, taught his followers the meanings of the verses revealed to him, and he offered them a perfect model of how to live by the teachings of the Qur'an. He led them from the darkness of unbelief to the light of faith by showing them the straight path and counselling them to hold fast to the religion of Allah. Although the Prophet, peace be upon him, had not yet preached his message in public, the Quraysh came to know of his activities. Some of the believers openly practiced their new faith, but the Quraysh in general paid no attention to it. Similarly, the Prophet, peace be upon him, did not oppose them or their gods.
Jazakallah khair for listening.